All right, guys, welcome to Wide Awake News Radio. My name is Charlie McGrath. I am your host. It is the 16th day of January, Wednesday, 2013. Joining me here in just a sec is Greg Mannarino back on the program. And hour number two, we're going to have Matt Widener on the program. Look, if you're listening in on chat, get into chat. A couple of great guests tonight, very informative. I'm sure Greg's going to be. I know Matt is really fired up about some of the shenanigans continuing to go on between Wall Street and Washington, D.C. Get into the chat room, wideawakenews.com. Click on the Wide Awake Radio button. You can also watch us both live because Greg's sending a live feed tonight as well on Justin TV. That link is in the chat room as well. And I want to say hi to the audiences, of course, of Rinse Broadcasting and Oracle, where we're broadcasting live. But I believe as of tonight, if our information is correct, we're broadcasting as well is on the Next News, nextnewsnetwork.com as well. So hello, Next News Network. Welcome to Wide Awake News Radio. I asked Greg what he wanted to talk about, what was on his mind tonight. He pretty much summed it up. I mean, the societal decay, and I'm going to bring Greg on here in just a sec, but I'm working on a commentary piece for tonight that I don't even know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. We had 23 executive actions signed today with the backdrop of a bunch of children. Of course, this is the reason why the fervor for gun control is being pushed out there because of what happened in Connecticut. And I did a video the other night talking about this. You're more likely to be hit by lightning and killed by lightning than you are to be involved in a mass shooting. But we've been talking an alternative for quite some time, that at the end of this, at the end of the breakdown, as Greg talks about in his videos and I talk about in mine, you are going to end up with a large number of people who are, for a want of a better word, completely disenfranchised. They don't have any representation on any level whatsoever. They don't count as a statistic anymore in this country because we just factor them out of the equation. They no longer have a home. They no longer have a future. And it doesn't matter what segment of the population. You're not going to just be able to say it's the baby boomers that are retiring that are no longer part of the system and they've just been forgot about. You can't just say that about one age group anymore because our economy, our country, our freedom has been so debilitated that it affects every segment of our society. And our society, I think Greg's right, our society is starting to show what's going to happen as we continue down this path. If you're a 22, 23-year-old kid, you got $50,000 worth of debt on your back just to graduate college, and then you get out, and then what? Well, if you're in the majority, you're moving back home with mom and dad. The employment pool for 75-plus-year-old individuals in this nation is now at an all-time high. People aren't retiring. They can't retire. Their investments have been blown out of the water. The value of their home has been blown out of the water. The economy is not recovering, even though we're spending money hand over fist like it is, like we're going to somehow grow our way out of this. Reality is starting to set in. And at the end of the day, at the end of the parade, this freak show that we're being experienced, that's been being played for our benefit right now, this freak show of recovery, this freak show of sustainability, this lie that we're somehow going to be all right because we're going to spend money that we don't have. We're going to borrow money in one hand and then get in front of a camera and talk about we need to get our debt under control on the other hand. When this all comes to an end, it spells disaster for the average person in this country, and more people are piling up in those forgotten masses roles. And when this gets to a breaking point, you are going to have millions potentially of people who are completely at the end of their rope. They have no hope. They have no future, and they're going to be angry. This is why it's my belief that we have this push, this god-awful push to disarm as many people as humanly possible. I'm going to bring Greg on now because there's a lot of points on this I want to get to. Greg Mannarino, thank you very much for coming back on the program. For those of you who don't know, his YouTube channel, is it just Greg Mannarino? No, it's not. What is it?
Gregory Mannarino Market Report. You could just put me in Gregory Mannarino. You'll find me.
Greg Mannarino. All right. Well, look, gun control is inevitable. I believe that for a long time, that there's a reason why billions of rounds of ammunition are being bought by government and sub-government and sub-agencies in the government. Over, billions of rounds of ammunition, more than enough to kill everybody in this nation multiple times over. Now, that would make sense if it was, going to the Army or the Department of Defense, but it's not. I mean, it's going to DHS, it's going to NOAA, it's going to Social Security Administration. We see this buildup, this arms buildup by agencies in the government that, in my opinion, have no business partaking in an arms buildup. And on the other hand, you have an administration, you have a mainstream media, you have a corporate policy, if you will, that is to disarm the American people. What's on the horizon, Greg?
Let me start from the get-go. What people don't realize here in the United States, and I mean this is by and large, they don't understand how the root of our economy works. Let me start with that before I lead to what you just spoke about.
No problem.
What I mean by that is we have an economy that's based on the relentless acquisition of debt. Now, so without the ability to acquire any more debt, the entire system stops working. This is why they don't balance budgets. This is why they're going to keep raising the debt ceiling into oblivion, literally into oblivion. Well, let's start at the very, very beginning here. If you had a child today, okay, the moment that child comes out of the womb, it's a debtor. It's born into this country a debtor, owing at this time about $50,000. Now, let's just say you're 18 years old and you wanted to go get a job. As the moment you become a taxpayer, you owe the government, part of the sovereign debt, over $100,000. You're born into this environment a debtor. Now, just going back to President Obama's little speech today, when executive orders regarding guns, he had the little children props there. Very, very nice. He talks about how we have to save our children's future. He's burying these children in debt. Every one of those little kids that are on the stage there owes the government $50,000. And they can't even probably say the alphabet, half of them. It's incredible. Now, this is why our society is in this state of decay. It's not designed to create wealth for anyone. It's designed to keep people enslaved through the mechanism of debt. It's god-awful. All right. People today, just like you said, to get out of college, they have bills, they want to start their own life. They can't do it. They can't find a job. We have a government, as you well know, that misrepresents everything across the board. Unemployment. We know it's at least twice what the government is actually saying, and people are being disenfranchised. If you stop looking for a job, you don't even count anymore. Inflation is out of control. They won't tell us that. They will not tell us how the U.S. dollar is losing its reserve status. President Obama will not tell you that the Federal Reserve is responsible for a currency war. Right now, central banks of the world are trying to get their gold out of the Federal Reserve. It's absolutely out of control.
Wasn't it Germany? Germany today is trying to liberate their gold back, get it back to Germany.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not the first time. This isn't the first time. What do we have? Ecuador wanting their gold. We have Argentina. Argentina and Venezuela, nations around the world. They want to see the gold. And all of this naturally is happening in a place that most people just are not interested in. Right. This is most of our fellow Americans. They just don't pay attention to the nuts and bolts of what drives an economy, because to them it's boring, and to them, we've been trained that it's somebody smarter than us that has our best interest in heart that is going to take care of us. But the truth is, what we're not paying attention to is truly what's going to kill us. We're going to be back with Greg Mannarino and more Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, joined by Greg Mannarino. I did it again. During the break, I went to usdebtclock.org to look at these numbers because Greg, you had mentioned that if you're born, you're about $50,000, and you're exactly right. If you're born, calculating by our U.S. national debt, which is certainly a rosy number that they're feeding to us at $16.4 trillion, that amounts to $52,211 for every living human being in this country right now. Per taxpayer, it's $145,000. What I found shocking is this conservative unfunded liability numbers. Greg had mentioned in the break, and I've heard the same number of 200 plus trillion is unfunded liabilities that we have to pay. They have it here at 122 trillion. That's $1 million, $1,083,000 per taxpayer in this country. This game isn't going to go on forever. Matter of fact, I don't believe it's going to go on much longer. But Greg, you wanted to talk about, I had said that most people on the topic of this is even accountants I know. This is I'm friends with a vice president of a local bank, right? Not one of the two bigs, but a regional bank, and they don't understand how money's created. They don't understand how this system works. So, if you have somebody who's a banker who doesn't understand how this monetary policy and monetary system works, then the average person certainly is going to tune to football or basketball or whatever the case is, and they're just not going to pay attention because they think it's just too hard. And I know you wanted to talk about that as well. Go ahead.
This is what I think, and it's very sad. Now, just going back to what we were speaking about, the moment a child is born, it's a debtor. It's a born debtor in this country, owing over $50,000 if your child is born today. What begins to happen, unfortunately, at a very young age is some type of an indoctrination into averageness. Okay, the indoctrination into averageness, and what I mean by that is people are put on a path that leads them to be average, to think average things, to do average things. And when people excel in life, they're able to think outside the box. They break away. There is no way for a poor child that's born today, or one of those little props on Obama's stage today, that they're going to grow up anything but average. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. It's the way the society pushes them to be zombies. And unfortunately, the problems that this creates are epic. Again, we have a country, the biggest debtor nation in the history of the world, that continues to be buried in debt. On a macro scale, so on a micro scale, the citizens are going to follow that same thing. They're all living too much in the now. They're unable to, again, think outside the box or honestly work towards goals. They've been so, I don't even know the word, made into almost like a machine, that they're a programmed machine to do this, do that, do this, do not do this, do not do that. And again, it leads them on this path where they can be nothing but average. And what is average here in the United States? Not very good. Years ago, people were entrepreneurs. They were thinkers. Today, we have a society that is in free fall. I've said for a very, very long time, this is a culture of failure. Okay, unfortunately, many of the young people today, they're not go-getters. They're expecting to be taken care of, and for the most part, the socialist Obama is doing that. He's kind of, we understand this man's the biggest socialist that I think this country has ever had, and this is what he's trying to do, and it's not going to work. These types of economies and governments, they never work, and they become tyrannical, and that's what's happening now, and that is why they have this gun grab, why they're using this whole thing to basically twist society into a way that they can be more able to just steal away our rights. This is happening, and honestly, like you said, because people don't care, we're all going to suffer greatly as we move forward. This is a setup. And it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well, especially for the middle class.
I cannot agree with you more that this is a setup. It's the self-realization must occur within everybody that this cannot continue. But I don't I've had this argument with others in alternative media. I'm not that I'm arguing this with you, but people who are buying into still what they see on TV, what they hear from their representatives, what they hear from, the shiny plastic paid spokesman on the business networks. I understand why, because we have been conditioned, especially, if you're in our age group, even older than us, a generation, 2 generations ahead of us, and the generations behind us for sure. This is all we've known. Greed is good. We can borrow and spend forever, and there's no ramifications for it. We can have leftist social safety nets up to our neck, and we're never going to have to worry about paying for it. Now, before people get mad that I'm going after safety nets, understand we have the left, we have the blue team social welfare programs, but we have even more erroneous and more damaging so-called conservative, these that are nothing even remotely close to a conservative. They're expanding the government even more. It's even more damaging to our future than what's happening on the so-called left side of social programs, social welfare. We have corporate welfare. We have cronyism. We have capitalism that's been destroyed, and something akin to central planning has been put in its place. And as long as you're in the know and you're in financially, you can sway legislation and actually write the legislation to govern the country, then you have an ultimate welfare program. The welfare is stealing the future of the people of this country and giving it to the uber elite. Right now, we're going to be back with Greg, Mannarino, and more Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, joined by our friend Greg Mannarino. I want to say Next News Network, the feed is being broadcast there. Gary sent me a link to that, so I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat room. And again, I'll say hi and welcome to all the folks over at the Next News Network. Great things Gary's doing over there. And we hope to be broadcasting the program nightly there as well. So now we're going to be, broadcasting on Oracle, broadcasting on Rents, broadcasting on Justin TV and Next News Network. So that's great. I mean, it's great for the cause of getting the truth out there and trying to wake a lot of people up. Greg and I were talking during the break. Greg's a real Renaissance guy. I mean, he's a medical practitioner. He's also in the financial industry. He wears a lot of hats, got a lot of projects going on. I think it's if I could pick one person I've met on this journey that is set up for anything, Greg, it's probably you, because you have. I mean, you're dabbling in. Pardon me. You're making a living in finance right now, but you have that foundation of medical practitioner, which I think is huge. I mean, that in fact, my girlfriend's. I've told you before. Working on achieving that same degree, so she can be a nurse practitioner, and I think going forward, I mean, these, in an all-out breakdown situation, I mean, that's definitely going to be something that is in demand. That mechanics, people that are good at fixing things, and a lot of people that are in your industry right now, in the financial industry, a lot of people who are in this right now thinking that they're cutting a fat hog. Because, obviously legislation, the Federal Reserve is all about keeping the markets up and keeping, optimism alive on Wall Street. But I think a lot of them miss they miss the point of 2008. The point of 2008, from a conspiratorial standpoint, which happens to be my view because I believe it to be the truth, it wasn't about, mortgages. It wasn't about bad bets. It was all about consolidating power, consolidating wealth, stealing from the future, giving it more and more power to fewer and fewer people, making the institutions that were one time systemic completely dominant in an economy. But they're not done yet. So a lot of people lost their jobs in the financial industry in 2008. But I don't think that the folks who are sitting back now thinking that they're covered because the Fed is always going to be there. The government's always going to be there for them. I don't think a lot of them realize that the next setup, the next consolidation will be even worse, and more people in that industry are going to go by the wayside.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Absolutely. The crash of 2008, and it's not a conspiracy. Look at what happened. We had the too big to fails become even bigger. A lot of the smaller institutions were literally swallowed up. Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, these were sacrificial lambs. That's all they were for the people. And this much worse is on the horizon here. And what I think what people need to understand is this: these investment banks, the Wall Street people. I'm a Wall Street guy. We don't care, frankly, where the market goes. It can go up. We're going to make money. It can go down. We're going to make more money. And that's what's being set up right now. And this is why I'm trying to wake people up from a guy who's been there, who knows how this works. I'm saying, people, this is a pump and dump that is being set up once again. The Federal Reserve is flooding the world with cheap money, causing a currency war on a global level. Currency wars lead to real wars. All right, understand. Now, when the market rolls over, when the market sells off, more money is going to be made in a shorter amount of time than anyone can even fathom. By who? By these investment banks, by the JP Morgans, by the Goldman Sachs, by all these people. They don't care. Frankly, I don't care. I would love to see the economy do well. My God, that's all I do is tell people, prepare yourself for what is coming. But I don't care if the market sells off. All I'm worried about is how I'm going to capitalize on it. And that's what I'm trying to do to my subscribers is, listen, put yourself on the right side of that equation. You have all these people out there that are throwing money into savings accounts that are earning nothing. In fact, they're getting negative returns because of the Federal Reserve. They're robbing people because they're not paying interest at the rate of inflation. It's unbelievable. You have people piling money into 401ks, which will evaporate just like they did. And where's all that money going to go? It's going to go into the investment bankers' pockets, the professional traders' pockets, because we're going to short it all. I'm forewarning everyone who will listen that this is what's being set up and what people like myself are counting on, believe it or not. Let me explain a little further here. The currency is going to collapse. There's no doubt about this, okay? The debt is in a bubble. It's the biggest bubble that has ever been created in the history of the world. Now, you need to get on the opposite side of that trade. You need to take up a position against the dollar, and you do that by holding metals. That's the easiest, most simple way. Hold metals. Get out of this fiat, debt-based economic nonsense. Get yourself into real money. I'm honestly, I don't own a mine. I'm not advocating for any particular company that sells this stuff. I'm just telling you the way that I see it. This is why I'm telling everyone. Do it now. Do it now while you can, because the writing is on the wall. There's a currency war going on here. The central banks don't trust each other. Governments don't trust each other. The people are going to suffer from this, Charlie, and they need to do something about it. They need to do it now.
Well, silver is sitting at about $31 an ounce right now. Gold's in the 1,700 range. I certainly own it. I don't follow it day to day because I really don't care what the.
In the short run, it doesn't matter. Yeah, like you said, it does not matter. We have our eye on the ball. Our eye on the ball is the debt. The debt is in a bubble, and they keep fueling this bubble. It will burst. When it bursts, people will lose faith in everything. The bond market is in a bubble. It's going to burst. Interest rates are going to skyrocket. When interest rates skyrocket, it's going to put pressure on equities. And this is why people's 401ks will be wiped out. And all of this cash is not going to go into money heaven, Charlie. It's going to go into commodities, more specifically gold and silver. This is how it's going to play out. And
this is all happening. I mean, it's certainly under the radar of most people in this country. Although precious metals is a little bit more in the forethought of folks, mainly because I can't have a weekend in Montana, in Bozeman, Montana, or anywhere I travel where there's not some big advertisement for some guy coming through, setting up shop in some hotel conference room, buying up every piece of scrap jewelry that the folks in the area have. So they think they're going to go in there and get a fat hog, and they're going to go in and get about $900 an ounce for something that they should be holding on to for dear life, so they can go out and buy the next gizmo that's going to be broken in 6 months. So it is, we've been told for since 2008, when silver was about $9 an ounce, we've been told that that silver and gold are in a bubble. It's amazing to me that the powers that be, and certainly you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to realize that there's massive manipulation in the precious metals markets. It's amazing to.
Let me follow up on what you just said real quick. There are many people that believe that gold and silver are in a bubble. First of all, for something to be in a bubble, anything, it has to be widely owned. Metals, precious metals, are hardly owned by anyone. Maybe, I don't know, I'm going to go crazy and say 10%. It's probably more like 1% of the people actually hold this stuff. What's that?
I said 10%. Yeah, that's 30 million people. No way.
A fraction. Yeah, a fraction of the people hold this stuff, so how can it be in a bubble? The dollar is in a bubble. The dollar represents debt. All the fiat currency is a unit of debt. That's what's in a bubble. And Bernanke, he believes that the world...
but Bernanke's calling you right now.
Exactly, that's Ben, right? Ben, listen to me. Get lost, buddy. Seriously, the debt is in a bubble. The dollar is a unit of debt. There's the bubble. And the more fiat that they print, the higher the value of the gold and now silver that these central banks hold will go. Think about it. It's a conflict of interest, the biggest conflict of interest in the history of the world. And no one is talking about it, Charlie. No one is talking about how this is a conflict of interest. We all know this is no secret. The central banks hold gold and silver now. Now, Bernanke was asked, is gold money? He said no. Why? They hold it for tradition. Really? So let's see. They're going to hold more of it for tradition, flood the world with fiat, so the value of that gold goes higher. It is no way near a bubble.
That's right. That's right. We're going to take our last break with Greg on this first hour. We'll be right back with more Wide Awake News Radio. Please hang tight. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath with Greg Mannarino. Final segment in this hour. Coming up, hour number 2, attorney Matt Widener, and we're going to look at the fat deal that was cut for the two bigs that are no longer going to have any kind of concern over fraudulent mortgage foreclosures. That'll be coming up in the second hour. Greg, we're heated discussion between me, you, and Gary Hendershot during the break about how long is this going to go on? We're just going to keep pumping this down the. Gary thinks we can keep going forever, and it's really obvious to me when I look at the last decade. Our stock market first went to 10,000 points in 1999. At that time, our sovereign debt was $5 trillion. Since that amount of time, we've seen the stock market go to 14,000 points, down to 6,000. Now it's hovering right about 13,000. The thing that has exploded, though, in that amount of time is from $5 to nearly $17 trillion in sovereign debt. And the argument by Obama right now, and it's absolutely as clear as crystal to me. 2 years ago, Obama was begging the American people to pressure Congress to raise the debt ceiling. Not unlike the too big to fail firms came to Washington, D.C. in 2008 begging for a bailout. It was all nice guy then asking, will you please save us? Will you please bail us out? Obama trying to pitch this notion for the last over 4 years that our debt ceiling, we need to raise it. We have to do this to save our economy. This is even going away now. Now you're going to raise this debt ceiling. You're going to do what I tell you to do. If you don't, it's going to collapse the economy. So they're telling us now that, back in the old days when Lee Iacocca was running Chrysler, it was a scandal for them to borrow $1 billion, have $1 billion bailout for that industry. Back in 1999, celebration at 10,000. Trillions of dollars later, we're hovering right around the same on these markets. But the big difference is we're all immersed in this potentially $1 million per taxpayer in sovereign debt. This, in my opinion, can only go on as long as the con game or the confidence game is maintained. When that goes, everything goes. When it starts to cost money to borrow money, forget about it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, let me just say this, just with regard to the debt ceiling. Obama is spinning this in that he's saying we have to raise the debt ceiling to pay these bills. What he doesn't want to pay his bills. That's why he wants to raise the debt ceiling. He wants to borrow more to pay the bills. If he were a real leader and a real president, okay, he would refuse to raise the debt ceiling and he would cut government. He would cut spending. They're not going to do that. It goes back to the core of this entire thing, Charlie. And this is what people don't get. Again, in the beginning of the segment, I had said this economy is solely based on the relentless, never-ending acquisition of debt. If we admit that we cannot acquire any more debt, we get a crisis like we have in Europe. It's that simple. So this is why, and we're at the end right now of that credit card. If we admit, if they say, okay, everyone, guess what? We're not going to raise the debt ceiling. We're going to start paying things down. Economy over, biggest crash you've ever seen in the history of the world. That's the truth. But Obama doesn't want to do that. He will not cut the government. He wants the bigger government. He wants a socialized government. This is what he wants. And eventually, I think this is the track that this country is going on right now. And again, the middle class will not exist in a few years because of the policies that are being instituted. Obama makes himself to be a prince of the middle class. He's destroying the middle class. And there will be a two-tier society, in my opinion, no doubt about it. There's going to be the haves, the have-nots, and everyone else, and that's just the way it's going to be.
And you'll, we've talked about this before. You'll have this servant middle class, right? That is enforcing the will of the elite. But it'll be a very thin segment of society. Everybody else will be on the, be the serfs in the neo-feudal system. But to the point of printing forever, why can't that work?
Well, because it comes simply down to this. The more money that they print, every bill that they print out of thin air or add on a digital screen takes value from every other bill already in circulation. And what does that do? It causes inflation. Let's just back up a minute. Investors, countries of the world, governments of the world all hold dollars because they needed it in the past to trade. That's changing. The U.S. dollar is losing its reserve status. Now, investors, governments, and countries are getting sick of holding on to an asset that's being crushed. Would you hold on to, or any of your listeners hold on to asset XYZ that they knew for a fact was going to lose value? Of course not. They're going to dump them. When these dollars get dumped, meaning they're going to be spent, all of these extra bills are going to, or digital money is going to start flooding the market. On top of all the 85 billion a month that this madman Ben Bernanke is printing, and it's going to create inflation to such a degree, people's eyeballs are going to fall out. So yeah, sure, they can keep on doing this, but you're going to be paying God knows what to live. When this bubble bursts, Charlie, this is what I've been saying for the longest time. It's going to be rapid, and people are going to be hit by a tidal wave of bills rushing back to this country, and inflation is going to skyrocket overnight. Resources are not going to be available to people, and the social unrest that we're seeing now, the violence that we're seeing now, is going to erupt in the streets, and we're going to have civil wars, which will lead to regional wars, which are going to lead to global wars. This is, if things don't change, and I don't think they will, this is the path that we are on.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you're right. I just, the question is it going to be a conflict that's amongst nations that will be a big distraction, or will things such as the internet and the exchange of information and ideas be so powerful that you do have breakups inside of countries like the United States? And for people to think that
what are people going to do? The people that are, for example, getting government assistance, if that assistance is pulled, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? At one point, the government, see, this is the same thing that plays out through history. Governments go into survival mode at one point, and they become tyrannical. And this is why they want our guns. They understand this. Every state, this is no secret, in the Union is being militarized by the police. The police are being militarized. Okay, why do they need military weapons, military tactics? Why are drones slated to patrol the skies of the United States? Is this to fight terrorism? No. It's because they understand what we just went over, that society will panic when this happens, and there'll probably be martial law at one point. I can't see a way out of this. Investors are losing confidence in the dollar already. It's very simple to make a chart for your listeners out there that know anything about charting. Make yourself a chart of the U.S. dollar index, the Dixie, DXY, okay? Make a chart, look at the OBV, the on-balance volume. You will see the dollar is being dumped and dumped big time. This is the beginning. It's all coming together like a perfect storm, Charlie. And this is why shows like yours are so important and why people need to get awake today.
And you know the decline of the dollar, you know the strife in Europe that isn't far from becoming a warlike environment between countries inside the EU, certainly between the EU and Eastern Europe. This is nowhere. This is nowhere in the news. I mean, we don't hear about it because we're focused on, you know, what are we going to do for gun control legislation? Oh my God, we got a fiscal cliff that we have to deal with, and hey, the debt ceiling is coming up. So we're being bombarded with things that are happening here that, in a lot of ways, are trivial. The answers to the questions have already been written, and the plan is starting to be put in force. We're not seeing what's going on in Europe. We're not seeing what happens when a sovereign debt crisis hits. You know, we have to go back. I don't even know how many months it's been since we've heard anything about, you know, people rioting inside of Italy, people killing themselves inside of Greece in front of their parliament. You know, it isn't like these things have gotten better because they've issued more debt in Europe. It's just we don't get to hear about these things.
Exactly. You cannot spend your way to prosperity. You can't borrow your way into prosperity. And again, this never had to happen. None of this. This all started with the TARP program and the too big to fails. They would not let the too big to fails fail. They wouldn't let them take losses. So who got it all? You did, I did, and everyone listening to this. We have to take on our backs the losses that were racked up by these institutions. Who runs the world? Wall Street runs the world. It's not run by kings, queens, monarchs, or dictators. It's run by Wall Street. That was a setup. They're setting this up again, but this time they're going to finish the job. Last time was just a taste. This time is going to be much worse.
Well, I think they needed this period of time. Like I said, even in 2007, right? You know, when we had George W. Bush send out the $600 checks to every taxpayer, you know, that was the first real stimulus package. But from that point back, you know, it would have been unthinkable prior to that what had occurred in 2008, and from there to this point. So we've had this period of time. You know, again, Lee Iacocca, $1 billion. That was a huge debate when that occurred. You know, this isn't free market. They should fail. That kind of thing. Now we've had this period of time where we've been conditioned to believe the only solution is to make companies that are too big to fail, too systemic, even larger, and even more dominant over economies, and to give government more power because they're the only ones that can save us. This is the conditioning that has been put upon us, and for the most part, I think it's worked as far as conditioning the folks to believe this.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, just to go back real quick, if printing all this money was so good, why doesn't Ben just put $1 million in everyone who exists in this country, his bank account right now? Why doesn't he do it? Because he can't.
It doesn't work.
It won't work. Exactly. And you know, and the sad truth is, again, none of this had to happen. None of this. If they would have just let these people take the losses that they earned, well, you and I and everyone else listening wouldn't be in the hole now.
And the only reason there's not more outrage about that, the only reason there's people like you and me speaking about things like that, is because we haven't felt it. And the key word is yet. We're going to. It's inevitable. That failure was put on us then, but we're going to realize the pain further down the road. Greg Mannarino, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Give us your YouTube channel again real quick.
Oh, it's Market Report. You can find me anywhere. Gregory Mannarino. Just put me on Google.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, man. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to have Matt Widener coming on next. We're going to talk a little bit about how these aforementioned two bigs got out of a big deal with the foreclosure gate, fraudulent foreclosures. They don't have to worry about it anymore. Again, this issue transferred on the back of the people. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hang tight.